Chapter 6 The Little House. Toodles stood over Wendy's body like a proud hunter as the other boys popped out of their tree holes. "You're too late," he said, beaming. "I shot the Wendy. Peter will be so pleased." Tinker Bell tinkled a little laugh and flew away to hide. The boys silently gathered around Wendy. "This isn't a bird," Slightly said. I think it's a lady." "A lady?" Toodles gasped. "We've killed her," Nib said, taking off his cap. The others did the same. "I think I understand," Curly said. "Peter was bringing a lady to take care of us." Toodles backed away. "I did it," he said. "I used to dream a pretty mother would come to me, but now when she did, I shot her." "Don't go," the others called. "I have to," Toodles said. "I'm afraid of what Peter will say." At that very moment, Peter's call rang through the woods. "It's Peter!" the boys cried out. They formed a circle around Wendy's body. "We must hide her," they whispered, but before they could move, Peter dropped in front of them. "Greetings, boys!" he exclaimed. The boys saluted mechanically, but said nothing. "Well, I'm back," Peter said. "Why aren't you cheering?" The boys opened their mouths, but no sound came out. "Never mind," Peter said excitedly. "I have great news. I have brought back a mother for you at last. Have you seen her? She was flying this way." Toodles dropped to his knees. "She's here, Peter," he said sadly. He motioned to the boys to back away. Peter stared at Wendy's body. He didn't know what to do. "She is dead," Toodles said. Peter took the arrow from Wendy's breast. "Whose arrow is this?" he demanded sternly. "Mine, Peter," said Toodles. Peter raised the arrow like a dagger. Toodles didn't flinch. He opened his shirt. "Strike me, Peter," he said. Peter's arm would not move. "I can't strike," he said. "Something is holding me back." While the other boys stared at Peter, Nibs glanced at Wendy. "She moved!" he cried. "The Wendy lady moved!" Wendy had raised an arm. Nibs fell to his knees and by her side and listened. She said, "Poor Toodles," he exclaimed. "She's alive!" Peter shouted. He kneeled at Wendy's side. He spied the acorn button he had given her. It was on a chain around her neck. The button was against her breast. He held up the arrow. "The arrow struck the button," he said. "It saved her life." The tinkle of a tiny bell echoed through the woods. "It's Tink," Curly said. "She's unhappy because Wendy is alive." The boys told Peter what Tink had done. Peter was angrier than they had ever seen. "I am not your friend any more," Peter called to Tinker Bell. "Be gone from me forever." Tinker Bell flew to Peter and circled his shoulder. She pleaded not to be sent away. When Peter saw Wendy raise her arm, he changed his mind. "Well, not forever," he said to Tink with a scowl, "but for one whole week." Then he turned his attention back to Wendy. "What should we do with her?" one boy asked. "Let's carry her into the house," Curly suggested. "She's far too delicate," Peter said. "We must not touch her." The others agreed. "But if she lies here, she'll die," Toodles said. "I have an idea," Peter said. "We'll build a house around her." The boys immediately set to work. In no time they were as busy as tailors before a wedding, gathering wood and furniture and bedding. Just then John and Michael appeared. They were exhausted and almost fell asleep standing up. They were relieved to find Peter, even though he was too busy with Wendy's house to talk to them. "Is Wendy sleeping?" John asked. "Yes," Peter said sharply. "We are her servants. Now help us build her a house." The boys protested because Wendy was a girl, but they soon gave in. Peter thought of everything. "Fetch a doctor," he told Slightly. Slightly walked away puzzled, but soon returned with John's hat on his head and a solemn look on his face. "Are you the doctor?" Peter asked. "Yes," Slightly replied. He knew it was make-believe, even though Peter didn't. When the boys disagreed, Peter rapped their knuckles. Slightly kneeled at Wendy's side. He put a make-believe thermometer in her mouth and then pretended to look at her after he removed it. "How is she?" Peter asked anxiously. "This has cured her," Slightly said. "I'm glad," Peter cried. "I will make another visit this evening," Slightly said. "In the meantime, give her a cup of beef tea." He took off John's hat when Peter wasn't looking. In the meantime, the other boys had been busy. Everything was ready to build Wendy's house. "I wish we knew what kind of house she would like best," a boy said. Hearing that, Wendy began to sing. "I wish I had a pretty house, the littlest ever seen, with funny little red walls and a roof of mossy green." The boys were delighted, for that is exactly what they were building. The branches they gathered were covered with red sap, and they had lots of moss for a roof. Soon the house was finished. It was quite beautiful, with Wendy resting comfortably inside. Peter walked around the house, ordering finishing touches. "There's no door knocker," he said. Toodles hung the sole of his shoe on the door. "There's no chimney," Peter said. He punched the top out of John's hat and put it on the roof. Smoke immediately rose through it. There was nothing left to do but knock on the door. The boys straightened themselves as Peter politely knocked. Tink, perched on a tree branch, sneered at them. The door opened and Wendy stepped out. "Where am I?" she asked. The boys whipped off their hats. "You are in the house we've built for you," Slightly said. "We hope that you're pleased." "It is a lovely little house," Wendy said happily. "We are your children," the twins exclaimed. With that, all the boys fell to their knees. "Oh, Wendy lady, be our mother," they pleaded. "Should I?" Wendy asked, beaming. "I'm only a little girl." "That doesn't matter," Peter said. "What we need is a nice, motherly person." "Oh dear," Wendy said, "that is just what I believe I am." "You are!" the boys cried. "We knew it at once." "Very well," Wendy said. "Then I shall do my best." She looked at the boys gathered around her. "Now come inside at once. Your feet are damp, so I shall have to put you to bed. But first I will finish the story of Cinderella." The boys crowded into the tiny house with glee. Soon they were all tucked in bed and fast asleep. Wendy slept too, but Peter stayed outside with his sword drawn to protect the little house against pirates and wolves. That was the first of many joyous evenings the Lost Boys spent with Wendy.